As an amateur entomologist, our next speaker loves spending time in the woods and playing with bugs. He later was able to study the goings and comings of inebriated partygoers as a nightclub manager. Eventually, he became an amateur beekeeper for 20 years, harvesting 50 pounds of honey yearly. It seems to me that studying insects, managing unruly clients, and getting stung by what he loves has prepared him very well for this industry. From Sherwood Park, Jason Brown.
Boy, that's a long walk. It's a long walk. Chris, doing a great job. Great job. It's got to be, yeah, absolutely. It's got to be hard to write those little stories for everybody. Yesterday, one of them stuck out for me. I don't know if you remember Daniel Kennerly's, where he was riding into a stadium, 80,000 people cheering. I thought, how could I stand out at Alair? 200 people. So after, I went up to the front desk and I said, how do you guys feel about, me bringing a horse into the room, rearing up? It's a hotel policy that we're not allowed to do that. It's a safety issue. It's an honor today for me to speak. I volunteered for this last year. After somebody spoke, I was quite inspired. I went right up to Adam and I said, I want to be up there next year. Obviously, pointing to the stage. I didn't know what I was going to talk about, but I knew something inside me wanted to be part of this team. However, there was an ulterior motive. I knew I couldn't come up here as an average guy. I needed a success story. I needed to have that motivation to hit that tipping point. So after the conference, when I got home, I wrote down in my goal book, and I write goals like they've already happened, like an affirmation, like Stuart Smalley. I said, I spoke at the Alair Conference in Austin, and it was a great success. So by being up here, I've achieved the first part of my goal, speaking at the conference. Let's hope the second part works out as well. So just a top-level outline. Sorry. I forgot about the slides. So just a top-level outline. I hope from today you'll have one big takeaway from this talk. Maybe you'll laugh, maybe you'll cry, maybe I'll cry. Who knows, we're in Austin, we're supposed to keep it weird. So here at Alair, my claim to fame was I was the first single franchise. So when we talk about 200 plus people being at this conference, it blows my mind. It's crazy. There's been so many milestones at Alair. Training, for example, is a lot different than it was then. Today, we have Smarter You. Back then, we had a whole lot of Smarter Blair. My training consisted of Blair sitting across the table from me and me trying to realize the concept of what Alair is today. I had some accounting time with Katrina, and then we went out for lunch. Look at that, eh? So joining Alair was a big deal for me. Like many of you, I had a small renovation company and I wanted to grow. The jobs were getting larger and larger, but I lacked some of the processes to keep me on track. My accounting, for example. It consisted of an expired version of QuickBooks and a 30-day session at the end of the year to enter all the items into QuickBooks. I was Stan in the van. Later, I became Chuck in his truck, but completely different story. I'm sure if Blair saw that picture in the beginning, he would have run for the hills. So back to Nanaimo and my initial training. We had started the training, but I hadn't signed a franchise agreement. I had this franchise check burning a hole in my pocket the whole day. I kept thinking, when am I going to sign this franchise agreement? When am I going to sign into this great concept? I also knew that once he took the check, I'd be good. I'd be in the club. You see, Alair was a hard sell to my wife Odette. I could see the unprecedented opportunity, but she was a realist, so it was hard for her to buy in based on a concept. Also, it was hard for her to understand that this is going to be a great leap for my business. No pressure. When Blair and I finally signed the agreement, he took the check, I was relieved. I turned to Blair and said, "So we're good? I'm in?" He really didn't know where I was coming from. He's like, "Yeah, you're in." I said, "Great. The bar is set here. Now the bar goes up to here." I knew what the idea of a brand was, and I really wanted to be part of the best of the best. But I soon found out things were not exactly what I thought. Once I signed, I found out there was no free pass. No 5 custom homes waiting for me. I found out there was a lot of hard work ahead of me for me to become the successful man I always knew I could be. I knew Alair could help me find the best version of myself, but how? So I mentioned before about being the first single franchise. Some of you might be thinking, he's 6 years in. He must be one of the most successful franchises. Well, this is not the case. I've been plugging along, hitting $1.5 to $2 million every year, but never really having great success or being highly profitable. Truthfully, I've always compared myself to those around me, and I come from a very competitive region. And when your sales don't meet the expectations of others around you, you start to doubt yourself. I believe goals should be set for each individual unit. So what kind of jobs do you want? If your sales goal is $1 million, then those small jobs are going to work for you. Andre yesterday spoke about small markets and how important it is to choose the right type of client and the right type of project. If your goal is $5 million, you better be looking for larger dollar value projects. Whatever your goal is, don't let others around you define your business. Success is defined by either goals met or not. I wasn't carving my own path. I was just letting fate drag me along. So every story has a turning point. Mine was a default letter. It came like a punch in the stomach. I remember opening the email and thinking, default letter? A default letter? How can I be getting a default letter? I'm the first single franchise. I immediately emailed Blair and asked for a phone meeting. Fortunately, he was away and wouldn't be able to talk to me for a couple of weeks. This gave me time to think on the subject. Even though I had had some success at Alair, what was holding me back? Why wasn't I the most successful franchise? Why wasn't I winning awards every year? When I finally got a chance to speak with Blair, I wanted to tell him how embarrassed I was and how I was going to change my ways. Unfortunately, he was unaware that I had received a default letter. But we were pretty sure Stu was aware. Blair appreciated the phone call, but when I hung up the phone, I started to realize I was afraid. Fear was running my life, guiding my business, and I needed to change. So what was I afraid of? Probably a lot of the usual. Illness, finances, health of my family, guns, bears with guns. When it came to my business, I think part of me was my fear was facing potential issues head on. Did I have a fear of success? Or did I have a fear of putting myself out there and potentially having no success? I had fear, and there were some big ones. My biggest fear was I had bought an Alair franchise, wasted 5 years of my life, and I was never going to be the man I thought I could be. Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." That made sense to me. That said, the idea of fear was actually larger than the thing I might be afraid of. It's been said that fear stands for false events appearing real. I started to believe that most of the fear was made up in my mind. Daniel Kennerly yesterday spoke of assumed constraints. The 18,000-pound elephant thinking he can't break the rope because that's what he's always been taught. Was I the elephant with the fake chain? Truthfully, I was eating a lot during this time, but I don't think I was quite an elephant. Hippo, maybe. But really, the most important thing you need to know about fear is that no matter how confident someone may be, fear and doubt are normal. So how was I going to deal with fear? Well, fear feeds off time. If there's something that scares you, the longer you think about it, the worse it's going to get. Like volunteering for a presentation in Austin. It's amazing when you tell someone that you're going to speak in front of 200 people, how different the reactions are. Some say, "Don't worry, you'll do fine. You've done lots of public speaking." Others say, "I'm happy it's not me." Some even revert back to the age-old theory that I should just picture the audience naked. Blair, looking good, buddy. No wonder he's the CEO. Maybe it's a fear about telling a joke about the CEO. I pictured Blair getting up, ripping up my franchise agreement, but that would pose the question of why he's carrying my franchise agreement. First single franchise. I get it. I get it. So I had fear. I figured I needed to see a professional, a therapist. I needed to get over this fear, and quite possibly, a professional could help me. It works in the movies, and it turns out this therapy is a real thing. I told my therapist my story and some of the things I was struggling with, and he had this evaluation. He said, "Jason, tell me if I'm right. You have poor emotional boundaries and feel the need to make everyone feel comfortable." I said, "Yes. I talk to way too many people in the line at the grocery store. I want to make sure they're not judging me on my food selections." He said, "You're striving for success, but you feel that something's in your way." I'm like, "Yes, I always feel like there's something in my way. And sometimes I feel like I'm in my own way." He said, "Jason, you are a perfectionist." I said, "No." I felt he was way off on this. A perfectionist? A perfectionist? How could I be a perfectionist? If I was a perfectionist, wouldn't my business be running better? Wouldn't my cash on hand always be in order? Wouldn't I never miss a day of approving time? Wouldn't I always have my CAFs approved? Wouldn't I never have to take a concession on a job? Wouldn't all those things be perfect? "Doc," I said, "I think you're wrong. I am not a perfectionist." He said, okay. "What if I said you were a bit of a procrastinator?" I said, "Now you're on to something." All joking aside, he said, procrastination is a form of perfectionism. Procrastination is a form of perfectionism. Now I was confused. He said, fear, procrastination, and perfectionism go hand in hand. So many times in our lives, we are so afraid to do less than a perfect job, we end up procrastinating or doing nothing at all. I should have worn a buttoned shirt. Damn, this soft cotton. So the fear had been winning. It was preventing me from doing what was necessary to be successful. The fear of the bad phone call, the fear of not getting the job and all the nasty things that come with having no sales. Fear was making me reactive, so I embedded myself in literature. I read the 10X Rule. I read Dare to Lead. I also read a whole bunch of books to my grade 4 kids. Like, honestly, I'm really not much of a reader, but I did get a lot out of those 2 books. Dare to Lead taught me that being vulnerable with my team and allowing them to be vulnerable aids in the success of my business. I learned that I needed to start believing in myself, as I will never outperform my own self-image. On the other hand, 10X Rule taught me that clear, defined goals can never be too large, and success is my duty, my obligation, and responsibility. That was a big one for me. Once I realized that success was not an option, it was a responsibility, from that point, everything changed. It was my duty, my obligation, and responsibility to my wife, my kids, my family, and my business. All this drove me to massive action. So what does massive action look like? This is what massive action looks like. We should just all stop and look at that for a bit. This is a rare breed of fish. It is the Grammus bellarama. This species originated in Saskatchewan region, but has since migrated to Alberta. It has a laser focus and incredible drive for the goal at hand, but has yet to be on time for a meeting. I have to change the slide, but I don't want to. So I chose the title for my talk today of Stop Swimming Upstream because even though I admire the hard work and laser focus of the salmon swimming upstream, I felt there had to be a better, more efficient way to achieve my goals. I decided to make things happen instead of letting things happen. As I found out, success is not something that happens to you, it's something that happens because of you. I had been reactive, and I needed to start planning my business roadmap. I sat down and I did a lot of thinking. Sales. What do I want? 2 million, 5 million, 10 million? Without knowing that number, I didn't even know what I was shooting for. This was different from the numbers that we write down with our controllers on our PL calls. The numbers that we're sharing with them are what we signed into project planning. These were going to be those lofty goals, those almost out of reach type of goals. I figured out what I wanted and I wrote them down again in my binder. And again, I write these down like I've already achieved them. I write them down so I can review them daily, weekly, and on a monthly basis. I thought I'd share some of my goals with you today. Goal. Alair Assured Park has a total sales of $10 million in 2019. We are not there yet, but by choosing a lofty goal, it has allowed me to increase my sales from 2 million to 6 million. Goal. I have a successful partnership, which is a result of high communication. This past year, I was able to partner up with Devin Buskus, and he's helping me carve my map to great success. Goal. I choose the phone as the first option after face-to-face communication as it gets the fastest and best results. If email is the only option, 5 sentences max. It's been said that 89% of project management is communication, either face-to-face or by phone. If I go back to every concession that I've ever taken, pretty much every problem that I've ever had, I can relate it back to someone thinking that the other person knew something else, and lines were crossed, and I thought he knew, and etc. And it all comes down to communication. If we have that level of communication with our clients, our sub-trades, I honestly feel that if we're struggling in our businesses, the sky's the limit. Monica Graham and I evaluated my time throughout a week, and the exercise was I had to write down in 15-minute increments what I did, no matter what it was. I was taking a leak or doing something else, it went down, it was on there. It turns out I was spending a gross amount of time writing emails, planning phone calls, and not just being efficient with my time. I now own fear. I know I'm a person who will always have fear, but I embrace it. Before, when I needed to make a difficult phone call, I'd write a script. Then I'd convince myself that the following morning would be better to make the phone call. Then I'd draft an email, because that would be far superior to a phone call. I'd run back and forth until I was wiped out, and in the end, I still needed to make the phone call. We all know it saves a tremendous amount of time and mental capacity to turn around and face whatever's at our heels head on. I should have put Graham up there. In our office, we have a saying. We say, "Go eat your frogs." I'm sure many of you have heard it or maybe even use it. What does it mean? Well, the story goes that if you wake up each morning and you eat a live frog, you'll probably have the satisfaction of knowing that's the worst thing that's going to happen to you that day. So my advice is this: if you have fear, attack it. Eat that frog first thing in the morning. The call you don't want to make, the email you don't want to send, the client you don't want to see. Get it done. There's a chance it won't be as bad as you thought. But truth be told, part of my fear was I didn't feel I was enough. I could never work hard enough for my job, my wife, my health, my kids. I finally realized that I needed to cultivate the courage, compassion, and connection to wake up each morning and think, no matter what gets done or how much gets undone, I am enough. It's going to bed at night and thinking, yes, I am imperfect and sometimes afraid, but it doesn't change the truth that I am brave and worthy of love and belonging. Sounds super cheesy, right? I think so too when I hear it, but it's a reality. We need to do the same with our teams. I love that last talk on teams. I just thought it was so great. Teams are so important. If you don't have a team, get a team. A team starts with 2. Accountability buddy. And Andre yesterday, I was Andre's accountability buddy. I feel like I failed as an accountability buddy because I knew like very little of that story, but it was so inspirational to hear that I had some part in guiding you. Accountability buddy, sub-trade, wife, partner. You need to have someone to be accountable to. Preferably someone with skin in the game. We need to cultivate courage, strength, and trust in our teams. We need to empower our teams to lead and potentially have the courage to fail. We have a great team in the Edmonton market. It isn't something that was built overnight. It started with Jamie Paul, and myself. As a strong team, we're always looking for ways to make each other look good. That pushes our team forward. Last year and this year, we spoke about the flywheel. Adding those people to your team over time helps move that flywheel. The admin person, the fantastic PM, the highly personable carpenter, they are all adding effort to the perpetual motion. Myself, I'm trying to utilize the team members that have always been there. Navin, my accounting controller. It took me a long time to realize that this guy's on my team. He actually cares about the direction of my business. My regional partners, Monica and Graham, we're meeting once a week because their success, or my success, directly impacts their success. We are all accountable to each other because we embrace the do what you say what you do philosophy. Our team commits to decisions and standards of performance and success and holds each other accountable regardless of role. That is PMs holding partners accountable, and of course, vice versa. Holding one another accountable establishes respect among team members who are held to the same high standard. That pretty much sums up Alair. People holding people accountable. I could have been a $1.5 to $2 million company for the rest of my days. However, by choosing massive action, I've increased my pipeline from 2 million to 10 million. I don't think it's dumb luck, but I do feel the harder I work, the luckier I get. I wanted more. I chose the path of more. I chose massive action. I missed a slide. This guy. Last year, we lost one of our teammates, our fearless leader, Jamie Affleck. Jamie was always striving for something better for himself and others around him. He had a passion for all things Alair, and the loss of him was a huge blow to our company and Alair as a corporation. Jamie would say, follow the process, challenge the system. Actually, now that I think about it, I think it was Stu that said follow the process. However, Jamie did challenge the system. I think he would be proud of the traction that Alair Innovations has made since its inception, as he was a pioneer in the goal for always be striving for excellence. I recently had the honor to be able to read through some of Jamie's journals, and from that I extracted the following quote. Success isn't some mythical final destination. It's a continuous life journey of challenging ourselves to higher and higher goals, searching for that edge of performance leadership. We should all go all in our lives and in our business. Me, I'm striving to communicate better, eat better, work out harder, have more faith, give back, and love more. Losing Jamie has reinforced my gratitude for family, health, and business. Those are my reasons to go all in. Own fear. Massive action is the planning and doing and not being afraid to make a mistake. My wife always says, actions speak louder than words. Stop talking and start doing. Create your own path with massive action. Speaking with all of you today has been an honor, but really a bucket list for me, so thank you. It's really rare to speak to a room full of leaders all trying to achieve one common goal, to make Alair better. Thanks.